last week we had like a urgent study kind of like pop up. And so I needed to spend a lot of time on it. And I had my 6-month follow-ups with my radiation oncologist and my breast surgeon. And I'm like, ooh, this is not a good time. Maybe I should reschedule those. And I'm like, nope, health comes first. Like I can work late if needed. I am not rescheduling these doctor's appointments. And I just had like that one brief second. And then I shut myself down and was like, no, we're not going there again. Old Brandy would have done that.
Welcome to In Her Words. This podcast is for women navigating through change, career, identity, motherhood, and just figuring out what's next. I'm Roberta Dombrowski, host of In Her Words and founder of Learn Mindfully. Each episode, I sit down with women who are asking big questions, navigating transitions, and trying to make sense of life as it shifts. You don't have to have it all figured out. You just need space to be real. Let's get into it. With me today, I have Brandie Smith. Brandie is a senior UX researcher at Fivetran. She's a former academic researcher turned UX researcher, and she's worked with big teams, small teams, and mid-sized teams. Really, this varied from Facebook, Metromile, and Fivetran. She's a mama to a 5-year-old daughter born the week before COVID lockdown. So she navigated a newborn with having no village. She's also a young breast cancer survivor and is now going through separation and divorce. So she's had a ton of transitions, identity shifts, which is really hard. She describes herself as someone who doesn't love change. Welcome, Brandie. So excited to have you today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me be a part of this.
Yeah, of course. You mentioned being a young breast cancer survivor. I'm wondering if you're open to sharing a little bit about your journey and how it started. When did you find out?
Yeah. So back in April 2023, I went to my annual OBGYN appointments. And there she told me I had dense breast tissue, which I had never heard of this, after like 25 years of going to those appointments. I was like, oh, okay, interesting. And I had been talking to her about how my primary doctor was like, oh, you don't need to get a mammogram till you're 45. And my OBGYN was like, no, get it at 40. We're starting to see it a lot earlier. Don't wait. And so I'm a rule follower. So I scheduled my appointment to be the day after I turned 40. And I was warned multiple times by her and every other person I came into contact with that because of my dense breast tissue, I may need to come back in for a second mammogram just so that they can make sure they got all the imaging done correctly. So when they reached out to me to say that I needed a follow-up, I didn't think anything of it
Yeah.
till I checked in and they're like, okay, you're here for a mammogram and a diagnostic ultrasound. And I was like, oh, my heart sank. I didn't realize that I was scheduled for that diagnostic part. And so the nurse brought me back, showed me on the mammogram the two spots they were interested in. And then after that imaging, sent me to ultrasound, where they spent a lot of time looking. And as soon as they got to my lymph nodes in my armpit, I realized this is not good. I was trying to hold in my panic. And I just kept imagining my daughter's face. She was 3 at the time. And then afterwards, the radiologist came in and she's like, I'm certain you have breast cancer. Don't be afraid. You're in great hands with the oncology team here. We're going to take great care of you. But I mean, this just all happened in 5 minutes. My world turned upside down. She's like, do you have any questions? And I was so numb. It's like, no, I don't know what's happening. And so I went home. As soon as I opened up the door, I just burst out into tears. My husband was upstairs working and he came flying down the stairs. And all I could say was, I have cancer. I have cancer. And he was like, what? And, I took 2 hours to really process what was happening, but I had a meeting later that day to do a presentation. So I gathered myself, did the user research presentation, and then the next day I got laid off with a third of my company. And I just was on the call with HR and my manager, and I was crying. And I know they didn't know what was going on, but I'm like, I have cancer. I need health insurance. That is the only thing I could think of was I'm a very logistics person,
Yeah, yeah.
very forward thinking. And I mean, I just couldn't imagine like what if I don't have health insurance? Like, oh my God, my health is the most important. How am I going to navigate this? And so that was a real, like a double whammy. I did not
Yeah.
expect either. And to have both happen within like 24 hours was a shock of a lifetime. And then, the biopsy did confirm that I had triple positive breast cancer. Luckily, it was stage 1B.
Oh,
So
wow.
still early, but
Yeah.
unfortunately, because of the triple positive part, it's a really, really bad type, but it's good because it's all the research has gone towards it. So in the past 20 years, a lot of treatments have come out so that it's now the more treatable kind. So I did 5 months of chemotherapy, double mastectomy. I did 15 rounds of research. I'm on estrogen blockers for 5 to 10 years, and I'm just wrapping up some oral targeted therapies. So it's been a lot physically, emotionally, mentally. Yeah, it's been
All
crazy.
from the 5-minute conversation of getting the results.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I remember looking at it and throwing my phone down. I mean, I read the word carcinoma. I knew what that was. I didn't know what anything else in the lab report meant, and I just threw down my phone and ran out the house. Like, my world was white. Like, I just didn't know how to process anything. It was the scariest moment of my life.
Yeah. I'm so sorry that you had to go through, because it's a trauma learning the news of cancer, and then the very next day getting the news of the layoff as well. The amount of processing and grieving and unknown all at once, I imagine was very scary.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I will say I took about an hour after being laid off to, like, cry and be angry, and then I just kind of decided to embrace it and say, "This is the universe's way of telling me I need to focus on myself," because I would have worked myself like crazy, during the time when I should have been focusing on myself, and so while it did sting and it did hurt, it's kind of worked out for the best, I guess. I mean, like,
Yeah,
that's the only way
yeah.
I can look at it, and my oncologist, when I told her what happened, she's like, "That's great news. You can focus on yourself. Like, that is what is important." And I'm like, "You don't get it." But she was right. Like, that was kind of like the best gift in, like, the worst time.
Yeah, because often what I find when people go through major life events is they try to control what they can. And it could have meant controlling via work and just like going heads down and researching and all of those things. And it sounds like that one outlet was just kind of wiped clean. You didn't have to think about it so that you could focus on just healing and getting better.
Yeah, luckily I was in the, environment where I could do that. I've read all these stories of women who still have to work, and I don't know how they do it, but, that was kind of, like, removed as an option for me, so but yeah, it's really hard.
Yeah. You mentioned the moment being on the call with HR and going, "I need health insurance." I had that as well when I went through a layoff. I was laid off at 10 weeks pregnant, actually, and I that's what I shouted to. I was like, "I just need health insurance." Did your organization work with you at all to get you health insurance and what you needed?
Yeah, they were really great. The HR rep took, my situation to the CFO, and so they doubled the number of months that they were going to pay for Cobra, so I could keep that going at less of a cost to me, which I really, really appreciated, except you have, like, that 10-day window where Cobra, like, doesn't kick in. You have to, like, get the paperwork snail mail to you, and so, like, that was the week or 2 weeks where I was getting all my testing done, the MRIs, the CT scans, like, bone scans, and so I was basically, signing away my life with all these forms saying, like, "I technically don't have health insurance, so I will pay for this," knowing that it would get backdated, and then it's been really hard to kind of, like, get insurance aligned again, so that was, like, a very unnecessary strain for someone going through this, but I really do appreciate that my employer, Way Better, was very supportive and flexible for me during that time.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, when we talk about systemic issues, I feel like health insurance, especially when you have a just a traumatic illness, you really see the bowels of the insurance industry and what's not working.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I'm curious, there's so much that goes into the journey of cancer. I've had a few members of my direct family, my mother, my grandfather, two of my grandfathers actually, go through the healing process with cancer. And I'm curious, what was it like for you? Because there's so many stages. There's the chemo, there's the physical journey, emotional, spiritual. I'm wondering, like, what was the journey like? What was your support system like along the way?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still healing. It doesn't go away ever really, and, like, it's really like the grief, the stages of grief. It's not linear, you keep bouncing back. Physically, it was, really, really grueling. I ended up getting hospitalized 2 times during chemo, so they had to switch up my regimen, and it's interesting because chemo wasn't like what they show on the movies, but it was also harder than I expected in different ways. So that was, like, really interesting to find out. But I think the hardest part about that was, like, being okay with laying on the couch, being okay with not putting my daughter to bed, having her wake me up with a kiss in the morning versus me waking her up for daycare, and so that was, like, the hardest challenge I faced was not being the mom that I wanted to be, especially during these really limited times of her being a little kid. Like, she's 5 now, and I felt like I missed out, like, a year of her life that is, those precious, young years that you don't get back. So that was really hard. I would say, like, mastectomy was the easiest, mentally the hardest, but physically the easiest, and then radiation was the easiest to go through, but man, it has lingering side effects that I'm still dealing with today. I'm so glad I did it, but it surprises me. But emotionally, I was also pretty much a wreck. Like, again, I'm a forward thinker, and so it was really hard for me to stay present in today. And so I'm thinking about, like, okay, after I fight this, what if it comes back in 5 years? What if it comes back in 10 years? So I was always like afraid of the recurrence. And it's like, I need to fight this first before I should worry about recurrence. But that was so hard to really just like keep myself focused on like this current battle. And I was like very anxious during this whole process, especially with around reconstructing. I was lucky in that I had like 5 months between getting diagnosed and starting treatment and having to get my mastectomy because I had to do chemo first. Other people or other women, you get diagnosed and then like 2 weeks later, you need your mastectomy or lumpectomy. And, you don't have much time to do your research. I had probably too much time to do
And as a
all the research.
researcher too.
Yeah, and I'm a researcher, so it's not like I just wanted the numbers, I wanted the lived experiences.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
what do I need to know in terms of, like, the pros and cons? What are people's real experiences either way? And so, like, I joined reconstruction Facebook groups, like, the variety of reconstruction, like, implant, deep flap is where they take, like, your muscle and your fat from your abdomen and kind of, like, move it up here to build mounds and they have to like reconstruct your blood supply. There's lots that can go wrong with that. And I was like, that's what I'm going to do. But the more I read it, the more I just became anxious to the point where I literally couldn't function with my family. Like the noise was too much. I was going into the shower crying nonstop, like, I just couldn't function with, like, this choice that I didn't want to make, but I had to make, and was really the only choice that I had a decision in. Everything else was decided for me, this was my only decision that I got to make, and that was, like, super anxiety provoking, and so I ended up getting on Lexapro, which I was super against. Like, I had the prescription filled for probably 2 months before I took it because 'cause I'm like, "I don't need this, I don't need it." For some reason, I felt shame, but then I was complaining of hot flashes from the chemo and menopause, and they're like, "You know what helps with hot flashes? The Lexapro we prescribed you 2 months ago." And as soon as there was a medical reason for me to take it, I was like, "Okay." And then, like, it kicked in, and I'm like, "Why didn't I take this sooner?" It would've like, I still worry, but I'm not spiraling out of
Yeah.
control. And so
Yeah.
that really helped me. And then I also discovered, like, aesthetic flat closure as an option of reconstructing. And as soon as I discovered that group and heard and read about like the experiences of the women choosing to stay flat, I felt like this sense of peace that I haven't felt before. And I was like, this is like for me. Do I want that option, no, but if I have to go this route, like, that's what I want. And so that really helped bring me peace and strength in a way I didn't know I could be strong. So that was, like, super interesting. And then spiritually, I'm still working on this. I've kind of, like, given myself permission to fall apart and to rest more and to ask for help, and also, like, make connections with other pink sisters, as we call them, and just kind of like, I don't know, just be in this moment, stop looking forward, like really stay grounded and just like focus on what I'm doing right now.
Yeah, you mentioned emotionally some of the shifts. I always say like the highs are high, the lows are low. Like especially when anxiety is in the picture too, and there's fear and not the unknown. And the just not having any control, not knowing how things were gonna go, and then you described this sense of peace and, like, calm when you found it, and it's just the difference in energy, even when you were speaking about that experience, I could feel it, and how powerful that time must have been for you, of just knowing in your bones, like, "I don't wanna do this, but if I have to, that's the next right step, that's the way to go."
Yeah, and I remember being in chemo, like being in the hospital, really wondering, is this ever going to end? Like the constant fear, the constant feeling awful, quite frankly. And like you never see the end of it. Like when you're sitting there, every minute feels like an hour. You don't see that there's another side to this. So when I felt that like sense of peace, I was like, okay, I think I'm getting there. I'm not on the other side yet, but I'm getting closer and that feels great. Was I terrified? Yes, but at least I felt content with the one choice I get to make, and that felt really good.
You mentioned about being okay to ask for help now that you're in this new season. Was that a huge adjustment for you as someone who is very, like, take charge and planning for the future?
Oh, yeah, I definitely like control. I like certainty, and I'm pretty, like, independent. So I decided really early on to kind of like share my experience because I never expected this to happen to me. And I just really wanted other people to be aware of like what to watch out for. And so the day I started chemo, I decided to share it publicly with, Facebook and Instagram. And, in that, I ended with like, my family and I are going to need support. Would appreciate any, well wishes you have. If you want to help out anymore, please let me know. That felt really weird, but I'm like, if there's ever a time to ask for help, like, this is the time for me, for my family. Like, I'm not ashamed, like, I didn't do anything to cause this, it just happened, and so that was, like, really weird, and normally I'm a pretty private person, so the fact that I was so public about this journey was different for me, but I'm so glad I did because I get messages all the time about, like, "I didn't know that," fact. Thank you for sharing it. Or like, I haven't gotten my mammogram for a while. Thank you for being a great reminder. So there's been a lot of positive that has come out of that. And then not even asking for help, but also accepting help. There's a lot of support I didn't ask for, but that people were great and offered. Like my daughter's daycare put together a fundraiser for us. Super There was another mom also going through breast cancer at the same time, so they put together fundraisers for us. It felt a little awkward, like receiving help, but it was so appreciated. My family was super supportive, friends, high school friends that I haven't talked to in a long time, just like little messages, outreaching, really like, made my day through those really hard moments.
Yeah, I can imagine. I was gonna ask you, like, they always say, like, it takes a village, and it sounds like your village showed up for you in ways that you didn't expect. Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess, like, I don't know, I'm always worried, like, will anybody show up? Like, am I
Yeah.
that important to people? Like, I don't think I am, but so I was, like, really pleasantly surprised and I don't know, it's probably, like, it made me feel really, really good in like, a really bad situation, and a lot of times people do wanna help, they just don't know how. So, like, even asking, like, "How can I help?" That was really helpful.
Yeah, I often find as women and, like, very driven, self-sufficient, independent women, we tend to be afraid to ask for help, or it's very weird. It's a new skill to learn. And when we do, sometimes we just have to give them the opportunity to step up and lean in and do it. And when we're doing everything on our own, we don't give them the opportunity, other people the opportunity to lean in.
Part of me wonders, like, if I didn't have a family, would I have accepted it so easily? Or, like, did I accept it because it wasn't me, it was more, like, my husband and my wife. I don't or my daughter. Yeah, that's an interesting point, but I will say, my husband really stepped up to take care of our three-year-old. Luckily, I didn't ever have to worry about that aspect. Is he going to do things differently than I would have? Yeah, but she was taken care of, she was loved, she was safe, like, that's all that matters, and so that is something that I will be forever grateful for.
Yeah, yeah. They often say that, like, after major life events, you have different perspectives, you appreciate things different ways. I'm curious, what changed for you? Like, do you feel like you think about things differently now?
Oh, yeah. Before, I would get, like, overwhelmed pretty easily by things not going the way I had envisioned or, my daughter acting out, and now I, like, take a deep breath and I remind myself, like, "This is life. This is what I fought so hard for, the good and the bad, like, this is just a moment and it will pass." So, I don't let that kind of, like, bog me down anymore. I really do take a moment to stay grounded and, like, in the moment versus before, I'm always thinking ahead and, like, even now, it's like my worry time is in my oncologist's office. Outside of that, I'm gonna try not to worry about this. I can't control it. I will worry about things when or if I need to. So that's also been a huge shift in, like, how I perceive things. Just really, staying more grounded and more present has been, like, a huge shift in terms of how I'm thinking about things, and also, like, does this really matter in the grand scheme of things? Most of the time, no. Like, it's really given me perspective on what matters, which is, like, health and family and friends, like, living your life, not letting life pass you by.
I agree. Really a personal, profound moment for me 3 years ago at this point in fall. My father went into heart failure for the second time in my life, and that was an inflection point for me to actually step away from my executive level role because I was just like, "None of this matters." Like, it's very much like whether it's you or a family member, it just, like, makes everything so pointed, so clear of what's important and what matters, and it also, like, before that, I was someone who would overanalyze decisions too, and I was just like, "Nope." All the decisions I had been thinking about before that, I just, like, made them very consecutively, very quickly, because it's like, "Why am I wasting this time?" Like,
Yeah, last week, we had, like, a urgent study kind of, like, pop up, and so I needed to, like, spend a lot of time on it, and I had my six-month follow-ups with my radiation oncologist and my breast surgeon, and I'm like, "Ooh, this is not a good time, maybe I should reschedule those," and I'm like, "Nope, health comes first, like, I can work late if needed, I am not rescheduling these doctor's appointments," like, and I just had, like, that one brief second, and then I shut myself down and was like, "No, we're not going there again." Old Brandy would have done that. Now it's like, no, like, health is what matters, like, I need to follow through with these appointments, and so I was proud of myself for that little, like, small win when, like, nothing it never feels like good time for those things, but it's like, I just gotta do those appointments.
yeah, and it's interesting because it's like if it was your daughter's appointment or like you wouldn't even think about rescheduling it, but because it's yours, it's like the instant thought is like, "Oh, I can move it," but caught it, you came back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like, why do we do that to ourselves? We will take care of everybody before we take care of ourselves,
Exactly.
and that's
Yeah.
what I'm really trying to, remind women when I talk to them. Like, I like to, share my experience in a variety of ways, and I'm always like, "Don't put your health last. Make that appointment. Get your yearly screenings." Like, it's never a good time, so just do it. Like, do it in the bad time because there's never a good time, and, like, you have to put yourself first, otherwise you can't be the mom you wanna be. You can't be the wife you wanna be, you can't be the worker. So, yeah, that's, like, one of the things that I'm like, "You have to prioritize now."
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I'm curious, one thing that became just woefully clear with watching my mom's journey with cancer and my grandfather is that There's no kind of, like there's no endpoint to it. It's like, "Oh, we're good until the next screen, until the next screen, until the next appointment." And I'm curious, how what does that look like for you? Like, how do you f it's like an ellipses maybe of the journey. Yeah, what does that look like for you?
Yeah, that's been the hardest. I would say the hardest thing to accept mentally. When I finish radiation, everyone's like, "You're done." And I'm like, "I'm not." Like, I'm gonna be on medicine for 5 or 10 years, but beyond that, like, I'm still gonna get labs done. I'm still going to have to get, screenings. And so that has been really hard, and that's where I'm kind of, like, not worrying until I have to. I do get some symptoms here and there where I'm like, "This could be something, or it could just be life." I don't know.
Yeah.
Every little thing now you, like, second guess, and so I'm not gonna be shy and ask questions. Like, I'm going to ask my doctor the questions. Like, they're getting paid to help me. So I am not going to be shy about asking them questions. And so, I've gotten some extra scans just to be safe. And so, like, I'm not going to stay quiet if I have something in the back of my head. And also just, taking it one day at a time, I think is the only way. I remember after my double mastectomy, they, like, do pathology on your tissue to make sure that the chemo killed the cancer cells, and only, like, 1/3 of the people with my type achieve this, like, pathological complete response, and so I was preparing myself not to have it, but I did. I was, like, one of the lucky 3rd people who had a pathological complete response, and I remember feeling numb. I remember feeling such guilt that I wasn't happy. And I felt like I was the weirdest person. Like, why am I not happy? But I've since realized that, like, this is a really common experience, and it's because you are never done. It's like, okay, this one thing, that part is done, but I still have all this other stuff waiting for me. And you also have, like, this hesitancy about, like, really believing. Like, I don't like to call myself a breast cancer survivor because it I don't know, I don't wanna jinx myself.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I just know I don't have evidence of disease right now, so that's how I refer to myself, and it's just, like, it's hard to believe. It's just hard. Yeah, I don't know that I have much to add other than yeah, and, like, leaning on people who have experienced it themselves has been really helpful. They understand the anxiety, as we call it, and, those women that I've spoken to have, like, really been helpful to vent, whether it's just a text of, like, "I am so scared of this test coming up," like, they get it. Other people, it's like, "It's just a test," but, like, we've had just a test, and it came back with cancer, so, like, we don't have that, like, ability to be naive anymore.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I'm so glad that you found these communities and support groups because it's so critical even for like as a patient going through it, but also there's family groups as well who are caregivers who can support and talk about their experiences as well. It's just yeah.
We say it's the worst club to join, but we have the best members. And it really is true. Like, we just really wanna support each other going through it because it is a long journey and it affects a lot. So, it's
Yeah.
helpful to be there for each other, and I've made a lot of great connections. I love sharing, like, my journey, but also my knowledge that I've gained throughout the journey. Like, I'm a user researcher. I ask why. I don't just, like, take it as, like, "This is what you need to do." I'm like, "But why?" Like, "What is this chemo drug doing, and what is this chemo drug doing, and, like, why do I need both?" And I'm, like, really trying to learn the science behind things, and so when people ask questions, it's like, "I'm not a doctor, but it's my understanding that, like, XYZ." And, like, sometimes just having education, like, can really alleviate your anxiety because you know a little bit more, and you feel a little bit more empowered.
Yeah, and you can like even because it can feel like it's happening to you because it is, but I feel like when there's education, one, you become more confident, and two, you actually become an active participant in the decision making with your doctor as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, agree.
Yeah. I know you mentioned that right now you're also going through a period of separation and divorce. I'm curious, has this been related to part of the health journey as well? I know when people come out of the other side of health, like it's just everything comes into perspective?
I would say it's not really related, but maybe kind of is. So, like my husband was like super, super supportive, taking care of me throughout the experience in more ways than I could have ever asked for. And so, like, not all women have that support system either. It's like really hard when I read stories of women who have like their husbands are not supportive at all. That like breaks my heart. He was like the complete opposite. But afterwards, now that I'm kind of like on the other side, after cancer, it just kind of changes your perspective in terms of like life is short. What do you want out of life? And how do you make that happen? There's an interesting stat. I don't really know the full stat, but it's like a staggering number of couples separate after the women get sick, not the men, but the women. And, it could be the wife initiating it, it could be the husband initiating it, but that shocked me. And I didn't know that going into it. That's just something that I've since learned. And that's really interesting and very sad. But, I think we're amicable, which is really helpful. I'm really appreciative of everything that he's done, and he still wants to, like be there for me should anything happen. We have a daughter to raise together. It's just kind of like life is short. Like let's make the most out of it and, try to be as happy as you can be.
It really does sound like this chapter is a shedding for you. It's like a shedding of the anxiety, the trying to control. It's like a letting go of, I know it sounds weird saying freedom, but it's a surrendering. It sounds like a time of surrendering.
And, like, neither of those were necessarily my choice,
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
they
yeah.
kind of, just happened and I just kind of have to go with them. I mean, I can choose not to go with them and kind of, like, fight against them, like, not get the treatment. That would have helped me and, like, been in denial, but it's like, I kind of get to reinvent myself. That's kind of how maybe not reinvent myself, but I get to kind of, like, be more intentional about my life. That's like, I'm not that different from who I was, but making some shifts here and there. So yeah, more intentional rather than reinvention, which feels nice. Like I have a different perspective and can kind of like, I don't know, make the life that I think would be helpful and joyful for me.
Yeah, yeah. I'm curious with this new shift, the intentionality, has your picture of like success or achievement changed? Like where is that in the scheme of
Oh,
things?
yeah. Before, I was very, like, achievement oriented, promotion or, like, in high school, getting straight A's and just, like, very achievement oriented, very independent, trying to, like, hold everything together, and now I feel like success is kind of being vulnerable. Letting others in during those moments that would be really helpful to have them in there, asking for help when needed, letting people in, and also setting and holding boundaries, which I have not been good at, but I needed to do during treatments. And now, like that I'm back to work, really setting kind of like, this is my work, this is my home life, and kind of really sticking to those so that I don't get into old habits where, I'm working myself like crazy and not taking care of myself or putting my family last. So I would say success is more inward looking now versus, like, outward looking. Like, you wouldn't look at me and say, "Oh, she holds boundaries," or, like, "She asks for help," versus, like, seeing my title on LinkedIn or something. So I would say, like, that has been a huge shift for me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I feel like boundaries are the forever skill journey that many of us are working on every day. Because the systems around us are not designed to support boundary setting. It's like they're created to take advantage of them, the lack thereof. So,
Yeah, and when I was looking for a new role after, treatment had finished and I was feeling better, it was really important for me to feel like my next manager was really going to be supportive to me as a person and an employee, but also like I'm not just an employee. And luckily I found that with my manager at Five Tran, which feels really, really good.
yeah, that's amazing. I'm curious with your transition back to work. So it sounds like you took the whole, after the layoff, you took your whole treatment period to just be and ease into it. What was the transition back into work like?
Oh my gosh, so hard. It was similar to, like, when you come back from maternity leave, but I was gone for much longer. Like, you joked about having mommy brain, I had chemo brain and menopause brain on top of it since I'm, like, in chemical-induced menopause. So that was like a double whammy. Words are hard to find. Luckily, after being in the groove of things now, that's getting better. I didn't know really how to step back into those habits that I had. Like, I had, I think, 16 or 17 months off. I started looking for a role probably at 10 months after diagnosis, but the market was awful. And after, a lot of applications and some interviews, I finally started back working about 17 months after. So that was a long, long time. A lot had changed. AI kind of blew up everything. So that was really hard. But also, I had this additional complexity of like technically being disabled, having an invisible disability, which was, like, something I hadn't had to navigate before, and, like, I through this journey, love to be vocal about my experience because I wanna help other women just be aware of this is happening to younger people, stay on top of your exams and, monthly exams, and so I didn't wanna put myself in a position to be biased, to be like, "Oh, well, she can't do this because, like XYZ." And so I kept it quiet and was even told by other cancer survivors to like, "Don't tell anybody your disability because it puts a target on your back." But I decided to kind of like be open about it. Like, I want to believe in good. And so I was vocal about it like on LinkedIn, but not necessarily in my company. But I slowly kind of, like, started revealing more of myself, like, Women's Month, I kind of, like, shared some information, and so that feels good in that, like, I want to share my experience with other people, but it's just, like, weird to have to hide this part of you that, like, really doesn't put you at a disadvantage, but other people think it might. People are like, "Oh, no, we wouldn't do that. We wouldn't bias against you," and I'm like, "But you would." Lots of people
Yeah.
that's been the hardest thing to navigate.
Yeah, yeah. And people say that about so many things about like, "Oh, you're a parent, I'm not gonna bias." It could be ADHD or any like so many different things. And I have a lot of clients too that ask about whether they should disclose certain parts of themselves. And it's unfortunate that we have to do masking in environments. And then it's like you usually get to a point where you feel comfortable and then you're always at choice. I always tell people you're at choice whether you wanna share or not, but it really is. There is a lot that needs to be improved inside of workplaces still around these types of things.
Yeah, definitely.
I am curious. We've talked a lot about challenges and navigating and really what this experience has been for you, and I'm curious what's bringing you hope as you think about your next chapter?
I've never been more clear on, like, who I am and who I wanna be, and I feel like I'm more vocal and in a position to make things happen that maybe I would have just kind of, like, let pass me by. So that gives me hope that, like, the next chapter can be just as exciting as, like, before cancer. My daughter always gives me a lot of hope. She's 5 now, and, like, she knows what's happened to me. We were very transparent with her in, like, a developmentally appropriate way, but it is exciting to think that I get to be, like, a role model for her in terms of, like, how to be a strong woman, that, like, breasts don't define me. They don't have to define you either. Like, you can be who you wanna be. Don't worry about what other people think. Worry about, like, what matters most to you. And then also, like, science. Science is making so many advancements right now. We are so, so close to vaccines that can prevent cancer before they even happen. And so I don't carry a gene. Like, I got genetic testing and I don't have one, but my daughter is still at a higher risk because she, like, her mom has cancer. And so, like, oh my gosh, if in 20 years she can get a vaccine to prevent this, that is, like, any mom's hope. Like, I don't ever want my daughter and any other woman to have to go through this, and so that gives me a lot of hope. Just hopefully it gets here sooner than later.
Yeah, yeah, and advocating for vaccines and the research to continue. Yeah.
Yes, and fund it. Yeah, all those things. But also, just making connections with other people always gives me hope. I love learning about other people's experiences with cancer, whether it's breast cancer or different kind of cancer. Like being that supportive ear to them in their hard moments, knowing that they're there for me too is really exciting. And also, I've kind of found myself in this position of kind of like being an advocate for the aesthetic flat closure. When my plastic surgeon, told me about my options, he didn't give me this as an option. And I brought it up and he's like, yeah, but you don't want that. Like women who choose that have a lower quality of life. Like that's not really an option. And I'm like, "Don't tell me what to do." And so, like, I did a lot of research and reading and, talked to a lot of women. Luckily, I had a friend who went that route, and so I felt empowered, like, "You don't think that's a right choice for me, but I do," and learned a lot about it, and so now, like, it's really important to me that I educate women to let them know, like, this is an option. It may not be an option for you that you want, but it is a valid option, and I want you to know about that so you feel like you can make the right choice for you. And I've already, like, heard from a lot of women, like, "I didn't know that. Like, thank you so much." And so that makes me feel really, really happy in terms of, like, just connecting, like user research, you connect people to information. So, like, just extending
Advocating
that.
for yeah,
Yeah, just extending
absolutely.
that to my personal life is, like brings me a lot of hope in terms of, like, women being able to make the right choices for their bodies.
Yeah, yeah, so powerful. Oh my gosh. How can listeners reach out to you, keep in touch if they wanna, yeah, learn more?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. I think it's Brandie Ward Smith, or you can email me if you want. I'm always here to support anybody who's going through cancer journey themselves or, like supporting a loved one. And it's Brandie Ward, spell it out, BANDIEWARD at gmail.com.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Brandy, for sharing your story. It was really inspiring. And I remember when we were emailing, when you were going through everything, and just to see the full circle moment and how you're empowering and advocating for other women going through it is really, really inspiring and beautiful to see. So,
Appreciate that.
yeah.
And, if anyone's listening to this who is like going through this journey, like I promise you there is light at the end of the tunnel. It's really hard and it's long, but you will get there. And, just take care of yourself.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here. If something in this episode landed with you, feel free to pass it along to someone who might need it too. You can leave a review, subscribe, or just keep tuning in. We're figuring it out together. And remember, your story, your voice, your becoming, it all matters.